Hey everybody, it's Chris here. In this video, we're going to be doing the first inspection coming out of winter. We're really here just to kind of see what's going on, to observe like any good farmer does. Make sure they have plenty of provisions, they're developing well, they should be increasing in population. It is the last week in February when I've shot this, so mine are actually about to swarm. So I want to make sure they have space and there's no like disease problem going on. I'm going to note what's going on so I can make a plan. Later on in the week, I was going to be using this hive as a demonstration, and I wanted to kind of get a game plan with how this hive was doing so that I would know what to do and be more focused on being able to answer questions. So let's get started. Alright, so before we get into the hive, let's take a look at a few things you should be looking at and for. You can see in this picture I've torn apart the comb a little bit to kind of get the sun on this little white dot. It's like a little bitty grain of rice. That's an egg. Most of that frame was covered in eggs. So that means that within the last 2 or 3 days I've had a queen. In this particular instance, the hive wasn't fanning or acting erratic, fanning like looking for a queen. Everything was kind of going normally. There was also larvae, which we'll get to in just a second. So my point here is, if you have eggs, you don't need to worry if you don't physically see the queen. If you have eggs, you have the potential to make a queen because you'll have larvae soon that are of the right age that can raise into a queen. And if you have eggs, it's likely she's probably still in there if you don't see any queen cells or the population's looking good and everything like that. A lot of people seem to really worry if they don't find the queen, and they seem to almost only focus on looking for the queen every time they're in a hive. And you don't necessarily want to do that. Just kind of let her do her thing. She's trying to get on a roll, laying eggs, building up the population. If you see eggs and larvae, everything's probably okay. Alright, next you have larvae. This comb here is filled up with larvae in various stages. Larvae at this stage are great because they will show you if you have a lot of brood disease a lot of times. So you should see a nice healthy looking larva. It should be white, plump, nicely curled up, and they should be being well fed. You see the nurse bees here, the workers. You don't want to leave this comb out too long, especially if it's kind of chilly, because you don't want to chill your brood. So once you see this, do an inspection, look over it. Look for a yellowing or black larva in there. You might have a mite problem or some sort of brood disease. But other than that, it should look pretty healthy, and we'll get a closer look here on the next shot when they get capped over. Here we have a closer look at the larvae. See how healthy they look? They're all white and plump. They're not yellowy or black or, shriveled or nasty looking. I mean, they are a little gross, but they're not diseased looking. Now, like I said, the pattern's not going to be the greatest. They're having a huge influx of nectar coming in. This is the last week of February, so the maples are really kicking, and some dandelions are getting ready to start, and it's been pretty warm. So yeah, they're having so much nectar come in, they can't exactly develop the greatest pattern. She's trying to lay around cells of incoming nectar. So yeah, that's something to maybe consider and look at when evaluating the performance of your queen. Typically it'll start to even out and you'll have a better pattern later on. But what we also see here is capped brood. So this is the next stage. The drone is the big one up top. It kind of sticks out. It's been described as a bullet a lot of times. This is the male of the hive, and we'll see them in a later slide as a bee when it actually emerges out and fully mature. And then down below you see a cell, like a normal looking cell, and it's just capped over with wax. Kind of looks like cardboard. That is a female, and that'll emerge out to the bees you see here, the workers, the females on the left. So other than nectar, you're also going to have probably some pollen coming in. That's on the left side of the screen. It's going to be yellow, and then there's one cell that's got red, probably from henbit. There's yellow and red, and that's not capped over. It's just stuffed in there. They call it bee bread when it gets matured in ages. But this is what they feed very young larvae with, and to make food for queens and stuff like that. And to the right you see brood. You see how it's actually capped over, and here it looks more like the cardboard I was talking about earlier. That's where the worker will come out. So you see they keep the food right next to the brood. Kind of rhymes nice. They keep the food right next to the babies in the brood, and that way it's easy access. I mean, they can feed them a lot quicker that way, and it's pretty efficient. Neat. So here's a great pattern. There's a few missed cells, not worried about that. Overall, this pattern is just excellent. This is kind of all-star queen, and this is what you would want all your hives doing, right? When that hatches out, you're going to have a huge boost in population. And the fact that it's pretty uniform means that all the brood are making it to maturity, so you probably don't have any sort of disease you need to worry about. You always need to keep mite levels and stuff like that in check, but a pattern like this is a good indicator that they're pretty healthy. There's, like I said, there's a few missed cells, but that's fine. That can be just where they were sticking in nectar as it was coming in really fast, or being hygienic. They found a varroa on that brood and they just dragged it out, or the brood became sick and they dragged it out. So yeah, here's a drone at maturity. It's kind of black right there in the middle. And then there's another one to the right. They have huge eyes, kind of look like a pilot helmet. They have wide bodies. They're probably twice the size of a worker, which you see here next to them. That's everybody else in the picture. So you have just the two drones here and everybody else is a worker. Alright, so let's get to the fun part. Let's actually go through the hive. If you notice, the first thing I do is smoke the entrance. This stimulates them to engorge honey, which makes them lethargic, kind of slow, and less likely to sting you. This will also kind of cover the alarm pheromones that are going to be set off if you pop, which you will, the boxes apart as you're kind of going through the hive. It just kind of keeps them calm. It's really important to remember, just take your time, try to move real slow, don't be yanking frames out. You'll kill less bees, you'll not damage as much comb. The bees will be more gentle with you if you're more gentle with them. You can kind of see it that I cut the frame side to side and front and back. That's like against the sidebars, and that's just to kind of make it easier to get out of there. Pry it loose from all the propolis or propolis, however you say it. So here's another shot of the worker versus drone brood. The drones are on the bottom and kind of on the outside towards the top right. You see how they stick out and they're not smooth and uniform with the rest of the comb. Those are the males. They're bigger. You can see some of the larvae kind of messed them up. They stick out, so when you pull them out of the frames, you kind of have to be careful, and you're not going to avoid it every time, but it'll kind of rip the comb apart and you'll see the larva inside. But the workers here are the more uniform, flat looking, more smoothed over. On the outside you see nectar, so this is going to be honey, and it might already be, but they'll start to cap it over as it gets to the right moisture. But this is what they're using to feed their brood, and they're kind of storing in honey as it comes, and it's typically on the outside of the brood area. So what I'm doing here is I'm kind of checking in between the supers. A lot of time there's burr comb here, and you'll see that they might put drones here or some honey or any worker brood even sometimes. But you'll also see at the bottom of the frames, that's where swarm cells are put. And if you kind of break them open, you can see if there's an egg in them or not. If you see stuff like this, you'll need to go ahead and implement some sort of swarm management plan. As you can see, no eggs or larvae here, but it might not be long. And all this talk about queens, here she is. Isn't she beautiful? She's the one laying all the eggs that turn into all the larvae and all the workers and all the drones in the hive. So pretty much the rest of this is just me going through the rest of the hive. You'll usually find that the deeper down you go into the hive, the more brood you'll find. I love working with this hive. She carries a huge population. It doesn't die off in the winter that she has to rebuild back up from. They seem to handle disease well, and I'm hoping I'm not jinxing myself by saying that. Knock on wood. They're very well organized. You'll notice there's a lot of honey on the outside, and the brood's kept pretty much on the inside. They're way out of space, and I would expect a better brood pattern if they had more space. I'm definitely going to be adding another box soon. I'm going to be rearing queens from her. She's going to be my grafting mother. I really want all my hives to be like this, and I hope that by breeding off of her, I will be able to have a very strong apiary, so stay tuned for those videos. And with that, that's the end of this one. I'll leave some links below, but go check me out on Facebook and Instagram. You have any questions? Maybe you want to talk about how your hive's doing? Leave a comment below. Thanks for watching. See you next time.